What's going on, everybody? It is ActusXD here. If you are a new viewer, then welcome. If you're returning, then welcome back. I have news that I think is quite literally going to save the game for a huge amount of people. I'm extremely excited to share this with you. It's a dev blog post that has just been posted, so let's get stuck straight into it. First of all, we need to cover what the original change was that had people so up in arms, so to speak. In the original December endgame update blog post by Zin Ramu, the following was posted about a change that was going to be made at the start of next year. I'm not going to run through the whole expertise system, but basically they were changing Watermark, the name of Watermark, to expertise, and they were making some changes about how it worked. It was going to, starting next year, govern the effectiveness of your gear, meaning that if you had Warhammer expertise, or what is currently called Watermark, at 520, and you went to the auction house trading post to buy a 600 Warhammer, 600 expertise or Watermark Warhammer, in the current version of the game, what would happen is you would have a 600 gear score Warhammer that you bought on the trading post. Their proposed change was going to make it so it would be still 600, but its effective expertise level would be 520, and it would slowly increase in power as you grinded up your expertise level. Now, this had a huge amount of crafters in particular mortified at the fact that the way that they had chosen to progress in endgame content, if you put crafting on one side and high watermark grinding on the other, they had theirs just totally, their feet cut out from underneath them, and they had basically been told by Amazon that the way they had chosen to progress at endgame was not viable, and you now had to go and do the high watermark grind. There was a huge amount of uproar on the subreddit, on the forums, in the game, on every Discord that I'm in. So many people were like, if this change goes through, I am done with the game. I've spent hundreds of hours and hundreds of thousands of gold leveling my crafting to have it be the way that I gear for endgame, and then Amazon is pulling the rug out from underneath me. Well, we have news. And if you're one of those people, it's going to make you very happy. Now, for me to be able to read this post out, what I need you to do is smash the like button and subscribe. It helps me out immensely. And whilst I'm already excited for this blog post, I'll be even more excited when you subscribe. Let's go. First of all, there's some boring nonsense about how they thank us for our feedback, basically being thanked for whining, but it has worked for once. The big change they are making, without further ado, I'll just read it because it's quite succinct. When we start reducing the effectiveness of gear to your expertise level, we will exempt, that means not include, leave out the following items. 1. Any item you craft. 2. Any item you earn from a quest. 3. Any item you purchase from the faction shop. Now, let's leave number 3 alone for a hot minute because it's going to make some more people angry. But number 1 and 2 means if you currently have 200 armoring, haven't opened a cache above level 60 or killed a mob above level 60 and your watermark is 500, yet you're decked out in a full panoply of void bent armor that you've crafted yourself or some other fancy bit of armor, I don't know, shut up. You've crafted it yourself, it's going to stay at 600. Your expertise might be 500, and so you, in the old system, you would have expected your void bent armor to get whacked back down to 500 expertise or currently gear score. Not anymore. If you crafted it, it will stay at the expertise level at which it was crafted, which means if you have spent those hundreds of hours, thousands, hundreds and thousands of gold to get your crafting up, and you have gear that is 600 or very high gear score from that, you will not be affected provided that you craft it. When this change goes live, still no need for you to do the high watermark grind. That is going to literally save the game for a huge amount of people. Very big change, but there's more to come. Any item you earn from a quest is also relatively big. So for instance, all of the legendary quests, the 580 epic quests that you get when you reach level 20 weapon mastery, they would have all been brought back to whatever your expertise was, but now they will be exempt, which is also an exciting change. I imagine we'll get more high-end gear implemented in quests as the game progresses and more content is added for us fantastic level 60s and the new fantastic level 60s that will join us. I still want to leave any item you purchase from the faction shop alone for a little while longer. Let's keep learning about the changes because there's even more exciting ones and things that are going to make a big impact on the game between now and when this patch comes in. And that is the first sentence of the next paragraph. Gear score scaling will only apply to items sold or traded after that patch. That means anything you buy between now and whatever X date is that this patch goes live will be exempt from the scaling. Again, if you're 500 watermark now and you're not going to increase it by one single point, when the patch goes live, if you just have already bought 600 gear score items off the trading post without going and killing anything or leveling up your own crafting, if you just buy it all off the trading post, that will be totally unaffected by the scaling change. So if you can get in early, that is excellent news. Now, this might sound like, crap, I'm not level 60 yet, so I'm going to be so far behind the 8 ball if I can't get there by the time this patch goes live. Well, I don't know. Go and watch one of my videos on a gold farm and then just buy it even though you're not level 60 yet, so you've got it there in your shed, backpack, storage, area. Super exciting change. This is an interesting sentence that I think tells us two things about the design intention or the philosophy over at Amazon. When we thought about it more, reducing power for existing players is just unacceptable and something we will not do. So we can tell, number one, I hesitate to say it, but it seems like they probably didn't put a lot of thought into this before they did the system, because it took, when we thought about it more, for them to understand that it was a silly change. But it also sounds like they've been paying pretty close attention to the feedback that they've been receiving. Even though it was super widespread, you'd think you'd have to be living under a rock not to see it. But it's an encouraging sign that they are paying close attention to that feedback that they're getting. The last massive change about this proposed expertise gear scaling is the bottom paragraph here, which I am expertly highlighting. And it says that when they implement gear score scaling, they will only reduce the expertise to the middle point between your current expertise and the item's gear score. So the example they use, I'm going to use an easier one even, is if your current musket expertise is 500 and you buy a item level 600 musket off the trading post after this patch goes live, instead of being reduced right down to 500, you will go to the midpoint. So halfway between 5 and 600 is 550. So your musket will be there. And then as you progress higher, the musket's level will go up in that midpoint range. So by the time you get to 520, the midpoint between 520 and 600 is 560. So you'll have gained 20 expertise points yourself, and the weapon that you bought will have gained 10 gear score points. That's a big change because it means it's still viable. If you just ding 60 and you just duck to the auction house trading post and buy yourself a full set of gear, then you'll be starting at item level 550, which is a massive change in your player power. So that's a decent change, and it's going to help those latecomers to the game not feel quite so behind. I mean, they'll still feel a little behind. In addition to that, we have some even more exciting announcements, which I think is going to make Gypsum something that was sort of more tuned towards players that already had quite a lot of gear, quite a lot of gold, that kind of thing. Now it's going to make it more accessible for the masses, let's say. So they're reducing the cost of crafting a gypsum orb to 2.5 coins, down from 100. That is a massive reduction. And then to cast the gypsum from 475 coins down to 5. So the total cost that you would have had to spend before these changes to use a gypsum case to bump up your expertise in a specific socket, not sockets, in a specific slot, is now going to be 7.5 instead of 575. Big change. Basically nullifying the gold investment, which means all you need to do is concern yourself with farming the gypsum and doing your what are now going to be called dailies, no doubt. There's some other changes to the way gypsum is going to work. The topaz gypsum is being reduced to daily instead of weekly, which means another day's worth of gypsum we can get every day instead of once per week. And the ingredients required to cast the potion have been reduced, which is good news. We've also had now I'm going to have to try and do maths in the fly, 4-hour reduction on the cooldown between gypsum casts from 22 to 18. I can't do the maths. I tried, believe me. That means we can fit a bit more. You can have a bit, what they describe it as a bit more leeway in your playing schedule. You don't exactly have to be on in that 22 hours. Every day you've got 6 hours to play with. Not at the game. You can play the game for 24 hours if you want. But in terms of your cooldown casts. They've also given a little bit of an indication about a future plan that they have in terms of building a global cooldown system to make it easy to coordinate. So it seems like instead of trying to randomly keep track of your chest or case respawns and your daily chest runs that you can do as well as your gypsum, there'll be some sort of global system, but it's relatively low on their priority list. Now, I was having a discussion with my friend just recently about the way expertise bumps work and how often or how many you would need to get to max level, and it wasn't necessarily really clear. Well, point 4 here certainly clears that up. They are hoping that you will need around 35 gear bumps to get one slot from 500 to 600, which means on average you will see your expertise in each slot rise, go up by about 2.85714. See? I did that in my head. Bang! Lightning fast. Apparently at the moment, the way it's been working, you can get really bad rolls, which I'm guessing means like you might get an expertise bump of 1, which makes it extremely depressing if you're going to be staring down the barrel of there's 5 slots, 3 jewelry, and how many weapons. So you would have needed like a bajillion gear bumps to get everything to 600. Significantly reduced now and hopefully a bit more normalized, equalized, standardized. Now, I'm a bit annoyed about point 5, and not for any reason that I think it's a bad idea, but because I had a video in production which I was telling people to go and start smashing Outpost Rush and corruption cases now so that you can have caches in your inventory ready to open, because cache loot is generated when you open it, not when you are granted the cache, which means you could have had a store of gypsum there ready to bang as soon as the patch went out. Well, I can scrap that number to record now because point 5 here indicates that you will get the reward at the time the event ceases, which means at the same time you're given the cache, you will be given the gypsum. It's not going to be something contained in the cache that you get when you open the cache. You get it when the event ends. So that is to say, when the corruption breach is successfully closed or the outpost rush is successfully or unsuccessfully finalized. Finish. When you win or lose. These are massive changes. They're significantly reducing the impact that the expertise system is going to have on basically everyone. Crafters are being brought back into the game and being given a pat on the back by Amazon and being told, nah, you're all right, mate. The decisions you made in the past that we encouraged you to make, they were actually okay. We're sorry. We debated you and pretended that they weren't going to be for a while. Now let's come back up to this one I've left alone here. Any item you purchase from the faction shop. I thought it was like the store. The whole time I was like, are we really going to be able to buy like 600 gear score items from the store? And I was really upset, but faction shop is totally different. So carry on. 3 exciting things that you can do. Big changes. I hope that you're as excited by this as I am. I'm only excited because it's going to keep more people in the game, and I love having you here, playing with me. I love playing together. Thank you for watching. I love you. And remember,